My parents threatened to skip my wedding, unless I invited my sister who slept with my boyfriend. I never expected my life to take such a nosedive. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here, writing about how my sister and boyfriend destroyed everything I thought I knew, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am, trying to wrap my head around it all. So, my sister, Sarah, 26F, and I were super close growing up. We shared a room in our tiny house and used to talk about anything and everything. She was the more outgoing one, always into art, music, and whatever else grabbed her attention. Me? I was the quiet, bookish one, always with my nose in some novel or working on a project. Even though we were different, we had each other's backs. That's just how it was with us. Our parents, John, 55M, and Mary, 53F, always drilled it into us that family comes first, no matter what. And for the longest time, I believed that. Family over everything. Blood is thicker than water, all that stuff. But I guess that only works if everyone is playing by the same rules. I met Ryan, 30M, during my second year of college. He was a senior, and we clicked right away. He had this quiet confidence about him, and we bonded over our love of books. We'd spend hours talking about the classics, authors we loved, and random stuff like the weirdest quotes we could find in old novels. It didn't take long for me to fall hard. Ryan was smart, funny, and made me feel like I was the only person in the room whenever we were together. After I graduated, Ryan and I moved in together. We had this small apartment near the city, and I thought things were perfect. We'd started talking about our future, marriage, kids, all of it. Meanwhile, Sarah was doing her own thing. She didn't go to college, much to my parents' disappointment, but she was hustling, working jobs to support herself while chasing her art career. She was always bouncing between jobs, struggling to make ends meet, but I admired her determination. I thought, she'll figure it out eventually. I never thought there was any tension between Sarah and Ryan. In fact, they got along really well, which I was happy about. They had a lot in common, music, art, and all that creative stuff I never really got into. I thought it was cool that my sister and boyfriend could hang out and talk about things they both liked. But I guess I was blind to what was really going on. The day I found out, everything seemed normal. I'd been working on this huge presentation for my marketing job, something I'd been stressing about for weeks. I was running late that morning and realized I'd left my flash drive at home with all the files I needed. I panicked for a second, but then I remembered Sarah was staying with us for the week, so I called her. "Hey, can you do me a huge favor?" I asked, trying not to sound as frantic as I felt. "I left my flash drive at home. Could you send me the files? It's really important." Sarah was chill about it. "Yeah, no problem," she said. "I'll email them to you in a few minutes." Crisis averted, or so I thought. Later, I got a notification on my phone. Sarah had sent the files. But when I opened the email, there was something else in there. It wasn't the files I asked for right away. Instead, the subject line just said Ryan, and the email was some half-written draft she must have forgotten to delete. My heart started racing, but I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was probably nothing. But curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled down, and what I saw, it felt like the ground fell out from under me. There were messages, dozens of them, all between Sarah and Ryan. And they weren't just friendly texts either. They were intimate, flirty, detailed descriptions of meetups, and inside jokes that only lovers share. And then I saw the part that hit me the hardest. "I can't wait to see you again tomorrow, Sarah. Last night was amazing." Last night. The night I was working late on my presentation, thinking my boyfriend was home watching TV and my sister was out with friends. Turns out they'd been together, doing God knows what behind my back. My stomach twisted. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to be sick right there at my desk. My hands were shaking as I scrolled further, reading more than I should have. I guess part of me wanted to find something, anything, to prove it wasn't what it looked like. But it was all there, laid out in black and white. They'd been sleeping together for months, 6 to be exact, 6 months of lies. I don't even remember how I got home that day. Everything was a blur. When I walked through the door of our apartment, Ryan was sitting on the couch, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. It made my blood boil. I didn't waste any time. I didn't even bother with pleasantries. I just threw my phone at him, literally, and told him to explain himself. He looked confused at first, like he had no idea what I was talking about. Then he picked up the phone, saw the messages, and his face went pale. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. Oh, here we go, I thought. The classic line. "Really?" I snapped. "Because it looks like you've been screwing my sister for half a year." Ryan tried to come up with excuses. "It was a mistake. We didn't mean for it to happen. It's not serious." But the more he talked, the angrier I got. Every word that came out of his mouth felt like another betrayal. Finally, he stopped trying to lie and just sat there, head down, admitting that everything I'd read was true. He said it was all innocent at first, late-night talks when I was asleep, a shared love of art and music that turned into something more. I didn't care. I was done. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't want to see you again." Ryan didn't argue. He grabbed his stuff and left. And just like that, the life I thought I was building with him crumbled to dust. But the worst part wasn't even him. It was Sarah, my own sister. After Ryan left, I sat there, trying to process what had just happened. But I couldn't. Not until I confronted Sarah. I had to hear it from her. I had to know why she'd done this to me. I drove to her place, my hands shaking the whole way. When she opened the door, she looked like she already knew. She didn't even try to lie like Ryan did. She just stood there, looking guilty, and said the words that broke me completely. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I love him." I couldn't believe it. My own sister. I couldn't even find the words to respond. I just turned around and left, tears streaming down my face as I realized the two people I trusted most had completely shattered my world. And that was it. That was the day I lost them both. I don't think I've ever felt as numb as I did driving away from Sarah's apartment that day. I had all these emotions boiling up inside of me: anger, betrayal, sadness. But I just felt empty. It was like I was floating through it all, watching my life fall apart in slow motion and not being able to do a damn thing about it. I parked my car at a random lot and just sat there for a while, trying to make sense of everything. How could they do this? How could she do this? Sarah was my sister, someone I trusted more than anyone in the world, and Ryan, well, I thought he was my future. It was like my whole life had been a lie, and I was the last one to find out. Eventually, I went back to the apartment I used to share with Ryan, and when I walked in, it felt so wrong. The place felt different, like it wasn't even mine anymore. I looked around at all the stuff we'd bought together, the couch we used to binge-watch shows on, the pictures of us hanging on the walls, and it just hit me. None of that mattered now. Everything was tainted. I didn't even know where to start, but I knew one thing: I couldn't stay there. I didn't want to be in the same place where everything had happened. I grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing in some clothes, my laptop, and anything else I thought I'd need for a few days. I couldn't bring myself to pack up everything. It felt too final, like I was officially admitting that my life with Ryan was over. While I was packing, Ryan came back. I heard the door open and I froze for a second. I didn't want to see him, didn't want to hear anything he had to say, but there he was, standing in the doorway, looking like he'd been run over by a truck. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at him for what he'd done. But I was too tired, too drained to even get that angry anymore. "Please, just listen," he said, his voice all shaky. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. I just kept packing, my back to him. But he didn't get the hint. He walked closer, standing in the middle of the room like he didn't know what to do with himself. "I made a mistake," he said, and I felt my blood pressure rising. A mistake? Seriously? That's what he was going with? Like this was some little slip-up he could apologize for, and we could just move past it? I dropped the bag on the floor and turned around to face him. "A mistake? You slept with my sister for 6 months, Ryan. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Over and over again. He looked down at his feet like a scolded kid. I know, he mumbled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened. I wanted to laugh in his face. It just happened? That's what people say when they spill a drink or miss a bus, not when they betray the person they claim to love by sleeping with their sister. What do you want me to say? I asked, my voice shaking with frustration. What can you possibly say that's going to make this better? Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it again, like he didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't an answer. Nothing he could say was going to undo what he did. Nothing was going to fix it. I'm sorry, he whispered. I rolled my eyes. Sorry, that's it? He looked desperate now, like he was grasping at straws. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just confused. Sarah and we connected over stuff, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, and I'm sorry. I messed up. Yeah, you messed up, I snapped, my voice louder now. You didn't just mess up, Ryan. You broke my trust. You broke me. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I didn't want to cry in front of him. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing how much he'd hurt me. Ryan stepped closer, reaching out like he was going to touch me, but I backed away, holding up my hand. Don't, I said, my voice cracking. Just don't. He stopped, his arm falling to his side, and we stood there in silence for what felt like forever. I didn't know what to do, what to say. I just wanted him gone. You need to leave, I finally said. Can we at least talk about this? He asked, his voice pleading. I don't want to lose you. I couldn't help but laugh, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when everything's so messed up that it doesn't even feel real anymore. You lost me the moment you decided to sleep with my sister, I said, wiping my eyes. There's nothing left to talk about. We're done. Ryan stood there, looking like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded, his shoulders slumped, and turned to leave. As the door clicked shut behind him, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because he was finally gone, and sadness because this was it. This was the end of everything we'd built together. I sat down on the bed, staring at the half-packed bag on the floor. My mind was racing, but at the same time, I felt this weird numbness, like my brain was trying to protect me from feeling too much at once. I knew I had to move forward, had to start figuring out what came next, but right then, I was just stuck in that moment, trying to wrap my head around everything that had just gone down. I texted my friend Emily, asking if I could crash at her place for a while. I couldn't stay here. Not after what happened. I needed to get out, get some space to clear my head, and figure out my next move. Emily didn't ask questions. She just said, "Of course, come over whenever you're ready." I stuffed the rest of my clothes into the duffel bag, grabbed my essentials, and left the apartment, not even bothering to look back. I wasn't sure when I'd be back to get the rest of my stuff, but I knew I couldn't stay there another second. That place wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been since the moment I found out what Ryan and Sarah had done. As I drove to Emily's, I kept replaying everything in my head. The emails, the lies, the look on Ryan's face when I confronted him. Sarah's empty apology. It was like I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. By the time I got to Emily's, I was completely drained. She gave me a hug, told me I could stay as long as I needed, and didn't press me for details. I was grateful for that. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Not really. That night, as I lay on her couch, staring at the ceiling, I tried to focus on anything other than the pain that was threatening to swallow me whole. But it was impossible. The betrayal, the heartbreak, it was all too fresh, too raw. I didn't know what the next day would bring or how I was going to move forward from this. All I knew was that I had to keep going, even if it felt like I was falling apart. Because what else could I do? I stayed at Emily's place for the next few days, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life now. It's crazy how your whole world can just collapse in an instant, and you're left picking up the pieces, not even sure how to start. I didn't want to face my family yet, especially not my parents. I knew I'd have to tell them eventually, but I wasn't ready for their reaction. I just needed time to process everything, without having to deal with all the extra drama that would come with it. But of course, life doesn't give you that time. After a few days of silence, my phone started blowing up. Missed calls, texts, voicemails from my mom and dad. I knew what they wanted. They wanted to know why I wasn't answering, why I hadn't been home, why I wasn't picking up. They probably figured something was wrong but had no clue just how messed up everything had gotten. I finally caved and called my mom back. The second she answered, I could tell she'd been worried sick. Her voice had that frantic, "What's going on?" tone, and I could practically hear her pacing around the house. "Where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for days. Why haven't you called back? Are you okay?" She fired off all these questions, barely giving me time to respond. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I'm fine. I've just been dealing with some stuff." "What stuff?" she asked, sounding confused. There was no easy way to say it, so I just blurted it out. Ryan and Sarah were having an affair. Silence. It was like the air got sucked out of the room, and for a few seconds, I didn't hear anything on the other end of the line. I almost thought the call had dropped, but then Mom spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What?" I repeated myself, feeling the words sting again as I said them. "Sarah and Ryan. They were hooking up behind my back for 6 months." I could hear Mom's sharp intake of breath. "Are you sure?" she asked, like she couldn't believe what I was telling her, like somehow I'd gotten it all wrong. "Yeah, I'm sure," I said, my voice harder than I meant it to be. "I saw the emails, Mom. I confronted them both. They admitted it." More silence. I could tell she was struggling to process what I just told her. I mean, who wouldn't be? It wasn't like this was some small thing. This was the ultimate betrayal, and I knew it was going to hit her hard. I don't know what to say," she finally managed. "How could this happen? Sarah, your own sister?" "Yeah, I know," I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "Believe me, I'm just as shocked as you are." At that point, I could hear my dad in the background, asking what was going on. Mom must have put me on speaker because the next thing I knew, Dad's voice came booming through the phone. "What's all this about?" he demanded. I sighed, knowing I'd have to explain the whole thing again. So I did. I laid it all out for them. How I found the emails, how Ryan and Sarah had been sneaking around behind my back, how I'd confronted them and kicked Ryan out. By the time I was done, I was emotionally drained all over again, like ripping open a wound that hadn't even begun to heal yet. Dad was quiet for a long time after I finished. I could almost picture him sitting there, jaw clenched, hands gripping the armrests of his chair. He wasn't the type to blow up right away, but when he got mad, you knew it. And this? This was definitely something that would make him mad. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled. "That son of a bitch," he said, each word slow and deliberate. "And your sister? How could she do this to you?" "I don't know, Dad," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know." I thought for a second they'd be as furious as I was, that they'd be on my side, comforting me, maybe even cutting Sarah off like I had. But then, Mom spoke up again, and everything took a turn I didn't see coming. "Maybe you should talk to her," she said softly. "See if you can work this out." I froze. "What?" "I mean, she's your sister," Mom continued, sounding like she was tiptoeing around the conversation. "I'm not excusing what she did. What she and Ryan did was awful, but maybe you two can find a way to fix things. Family's important, you know that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just told them how Sarah had stabbed me in the back in the worst way possible, and their first instinct was to get me to forgive her? To fix things? "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice rising. "She slept with my boyfriend, Mom. She betrayed me. How am I supposed to just work it out with her?" "I'm not saying you have to forgive her right away," Mom said, clearly uncomfortable. "But she's your sister. You two have been close your whole lives. I hate to see this tear you apart." Tear us apart? It wasn't like we had a simple fight. This wasn't something that could just be patched up with a few apologies and a family dinner. Sarah had destroyed our relationship. There was no coming back from that, at least not anytime soon. I don't think you understand how badly she hurt me, I said, my voice shaking. She's not my sister anymore. Not after this. Dad finally chimed in again. Look, I get that you're angry and you have every right to be, he said, his voice still calm but firm. But what your mom's trying to say is, don't make any decisions you can't take back. Sarah's family. You might hate her right now, but at the end of the day, she's still your sister. Maybe one day you'll be able to find some sort of peace with this. I felt like I was going crazy. Here I was, hurting more than I ever had in my life, and they were worried about keeping the family together? Where was the outrage? Where was the support? I needed them to be on my side to see how broken I was. But all I was getting was, she's still your sister and family is everything. I'd had enough. I can't do this right now, I said, my voice tight. I need some space. I'll talk to you guys later. I hung up before they could say anything else. I was shaking, trying to hold back the tears. I couldn't believe it. My parents, my own parents, were more concerned about me forgiving Sarah than they were about what she'd done to me. It felt like they were choosing her, like they were telling me my feelings didn't matter. And that hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. After that call, I knew things were going to be different. It wasn't just Sarah and Ryan who'd betrayed me. In a way, my parents had too. They weren't on my side. They were just trying to keep the peace, and I wasn't interested in peace right now. I was interested in surviving, in figuring out how to get through this without falling apart completely. I didn't know what the next steps were, but one thing was clear. I was on my own. After that call with my parents, I felt more alone than ever. I mean, I knew things were already messed up, but hearing them try to push me toward forgiveness, like it was that simple, just made everything worse. I thought I could at least count on them to understand how broken I was, but they just didn't get it. It's like they were so focused on keeping the family together that they couldn't see how much I needed them to support me, not Sarah. I stayed with Emily for a while longer, trying to get my head on straight. I had no idea how to even begin putting my life back together. The person I thought I was going to marry had betrayed me. My sister, the person I trusted the most, had betrayed me, and my parents? They were basically telling me to suck it up and get over it. I wasn't ready to deal with any of it, but I knew I couldn't hide forever. One night, while I was zoning out on the couch at Emily's, she brought up something I hadn't thought about yet. You know, you're going to have to get the rest of your stuff from the apartment at some point, she said carefully, like she didn't want to push me too hard, but knew it had to be said. She was right. I couldn't just avoid the apartment forever, no matter how much I wanted to. All my things were still there, and I had to figure out how to move on. But the thought of going back to that place, the place where everything fell apart, made me sick to my stomach. So, a few days later, Emily and I drove over to the apartment. I hadn't been back since the day I kicked Ryan out, and walking through the door was like stepping into a time capsule of everything I'd lost. We managed to pack most of my things by the end of the day, but I still had this feeling of unfinished business. Like even though I'd gotten all my stuff out, I hadn't fully let go yet. The apartment, Ryan, Sarah, it all still had this hold on me, and I hated it. When we finally got back to Emily's, I felt a little lighter, but I still wasn't sure what my next move was. I couldn't go back to that apartment, but I didn't want to keep imposing on Emily forever. I needed to start making some real changes to move on from this chapter of my life, even if it felt impossible at the moment. It was around that time I met Alex. We were introduced through some mutual friends at a casual get-together, and at first, I wasn't really in the mood for socializing. I mean, after everything that had happened, the last thing on my mind was meeting someone new. But Alex was different. He didn't push, didn't pry into what had happened. He was just easy to talk to. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't in a long time. I remember one night we were all sitting around, and Alex started telling this ridiculous story about his dog getting into his neighbor's yard and causing absolute chaos. It was stupid and silly, but it was the first time I genuinely laughed since everything fell apart. I didn't realize how much I needed that. Lies how. We started hanging out more, just as friends at first, and I appreciated that he wasn't in any rush to make things more serious. It was nice having someone to talk to, someone who wasn't involved in all the drama of my past. He knew what had happened with Ryan and Sarah. He'd heard it from our mutual friends, but he never pushed me to talk about it unless I wanted to. He was patient, giving me the space I needed to figure things out. Eventually, things did start getting more serious with Alex, but it was different this time. I wasn't rushing into anything. After what had happened with Ryan, I had major trust issues, and Alex knew that. He didn't push me to move faster than I was comfortable with, which made all the difference. Slowly, I started to feel like maybe there was a future for me after all, even if it wasn't the one I'd originally planned. But just as I was starting to feel like I was getting my life back on track, my parents threw another wrench into things. They knew I was seeing Alex, and they were happy for me, but they just couldn't let go of the whole Sarah situation. Every time I talked to them, they found some way to bring her up, like it was their mission to make me forgive her. "You know, Sarah's been struggling," Mom would say during one of our phone calls. "She's been through a lot since everything happened. She misses you." I wanted to scream. I knew Sarah was struggling. I wasn't blind to it. But that didn't change what she did. And yet, every time I talked to my parents, it was like they were trying to guilt me into letting her back into my life. They just couldn't seem to understand that I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I'd never be ready for that. It got to the point where I was dreading talking to them. Every conversation turned into some sort of passive-aggressive guilt trip about Sarah and how family is forever and everyone makes mistakes. But I was tired of hearing it. I was tired of them trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed, at least not right now. I had to put some distance between us. I stopped answering their calls as much, and when I did talk to them, I kept it short. I wasn't trying to be rude, but I just couldn't handle the constant pressure anymore. I needed space to figure out what I wanted, not what they wanted from me. I was moving forward, but it was on my own terms. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. As time went by, my relationship with Alex became more serious, and eventually, he proposed. I was over the moon, and we soon started planning our wedding. I thought wedding planning would be all about picking flowers, deciding on cake flavors, and finding the perfect dress. You know, the stuff you see in movies. But for me, it was like walking through a minefield. The closer we got to the big day, the more my parents turned it into a constant battle. And of course, the main problem was Sarah. From the start, I knew it was going to be tricky with her. After everything that had happened with Ryan, the last thing I wanted was Sarah anywhere near my wedding. I mean, she betrayed me in the worst way possible. The idea of having her there, standing around like nothing happened, made my skin crawl. But of course my parents had a completely different view. They had started making little comments here and there like, "Have you thought about inviting Sarah?" Or, "It would be nice to have the whole family together." At first, I ignored it. I figured they'd eventually get the hint and drop it. But they didn't. In fact, it seemed like the closer we got to the wedding, the more they pushed. One afternoon, my mom and dad came over to help finalize some wedding details. Or at least that's what I thought. We sat down with the guest list, and my mom had this weird look on her face the whole time. I could tell something was coming, but I wasn't ready for what she said next. "So, we've been thinking," she started, her voice too casual for the way she was fidgeting with the paper in her hands. "We really think it would be a mistake not to invite Sarah to the wedding." I froze. I'd been waiting for this conversation, but I still wasn't ready for it. "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm, "we've talked about this. Sarah isn't invited. I'm not comfortable with her being there." My dad chimed in then, his voice firm, like he was trying to reason with me. "She's your sister. Don't you think you two can at least try to work things out? It's your wedding. It should be a time for family to come together." I took a deep breath, already feeling the tension rise in my chest. "Dad, this is my wedding. I don't want to spend the whole day feeling uncomfortable because she's there. It's supposed to be a happy day for me and Alex, not a reunion where I'm forced to forgive her just because it's family." But they didn't stop there. My mom leaned forward, her tone turning soft, almost pleading. "Sweetie, Sarah's been struggling. She regrets what happened, and this could be a chance to start fresh. We just don't want this rift to last forever. I could feel my patience slipping. This isn't about starting fresh. She slept with my boyfriend. It's not something I can just get over because it's convenient for the wedding. I'm not ready to forgive her, and I don't know if I ever will be. That's when things escalated. My dad sighed, crossing his arms. We're not saying you have to forgive her right away, but not inviting her to the wedding. Do you really want to make things worse? We're your parents, and we're telling you this is a mistake. I could feel my anger building. They weren't listening. It was like they cared more about keeping up appearances and having Sarah there than they did about how I felt. I don't care if it makes things worse, I snapped. This is about me and Alex, not Sarah. She lost the right to be part of my life when she did what she did. Then my mom hit me with the line that really set me off. If Sarah isn't invited, we might have to reconsider attending the wedding ourselves. I stared at them, completely speechless. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents were basically giving me an ultimatum. Invite Sarah or they wouldn't come to my wedding. The worst part? They said it so calmly, like it was some reasonable request, like they were helping me by threatening to not come. You can't be serious, I said, my voice barely holding it together. You're really telling me that you won't come to your own daughter's wedding because I won't invite the sister who betrayed me? My dad didn't even blink. We're not saying we don't want to be there, but family is important. Sarah should be there, and we don't want to see our family divided like this. I couldn't believe it. This was my day, and here they were, making it all about Sarah. Not once did they ask how I felt about it. Not once did they consider that maybe, just maybe, I didn't want the person who hurt me most at my wedding. But it got worse. They didn't just stop at Sarah. Oh no, they decided to come for Emily too. And about Emily, my mom started, hesitating like she knew she was about to cross a line. We know she's been a good friend to you, but we also feel like she's complicated things between you and the family. I just stared at her. What are you talking about? My dad jumped in, clearly trying to back her up. We think maybe you should reconsider having Emily in the wedding party. She's been part of the reason you've distanced yourself from us, hasn't she? We're just worried she's been a negative influence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were actually blaming Emily, my best friend, the one who had stood by me when my life fell apart, for complicating things. They thought she was the problem? So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice shaking. You want me to invite Sarah, the person who betrayed me, but uninvite Emily, the person who supported me through all of this? That's your solution? My mom had the nerve to look sad, like she was the one being hurt here. We just think it would help things go smoother. You and Sarah could try to rebuild, and Emily, well, she's not family. That was it. I was done. You know what? No. Emily is family. She's been more of a sister to me than Sarah ever has. If you're telling me I have to choose between inviting Sarah or having you at my wedding, then I guess you're not coming. They looked shocked, like they couldn't believe I was actually standing up to them. But I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to let them guilt-trip me into making my wedding day about Sarah. This is my wedding, I continued, my voice firm. And I'm not going to invite someone who hurt me just to make you happy. If you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't be there. My mom started to cry, and my dad just shook his head, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to bend this time. They could either support me or miss the wedding, but I wasn't going to let them control my life anymore. They left without saying much else. And after the door closed, I just stood there, feeling a weird mix of sadness and relief. It hurt, knowing they might not come. But at the same time, I felt free. Free to have the wedding I wanted, with the people who actually cared about me and supported me. And honestly, that's all I needed. After everything that happened with my parents, I wasn't sure what to expect. I sent out the invitations, hoping deep down that maybe they'd change their minds. I kept telling myself not to get my hopes up, but, they're my parents. Even after all the drama, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd come to their senses and show up for me on my wedding day. But as the days passed and the RSVP deadline came and went, I didn't hear a thing. No call, no message, nothing. I tried not to let it get to me, but it's hard not to feel something when your own parents are basically saying, "Yeah, we'd rather skip your wedding than support you." As the wedding day got closer, I pushed all that aside. I had too much to focus on. Last-minute details, the dress, the rehearsal, making sure everything was lined up for the big day. And honestly, the closer I got to the wedding, the more I realized I couldn't spend my time worrying about them. This was my day, and I was determined not to let their absence ruin it. The morning of the wedding was perfect. The weather was exactly what I hoped for. Sunny with a light breeze, just warm enough to feel comfortable without melting in the heat. Emily and the rest of my bridesmaids were there with me, getting ready in the bridal suite, and the energy was light, fun, and stress-free. We laughed, talked about everything except my parents, and just focused on what the day was supposed to be about. Celebrating my marriage to Alex. I won't lie, though. When it was time to start the ceremony, there was this little part of me that kept glancing toward the entrance, hoping, just for a second, that I'd see my parents walking in, late, but still there. But they didn't. That empty feeling came back, like a pit in my stomach, but I forced myself to push through it. I wasn't going to let their absence steal my happiness. The ceremony itself was amazing. Walking down the aisle without my dad was tough, but seeing Alex standing there, waiting for me with that goofy, loving smile on his face made everything else fade away. The vows, the laughter, the joy, it all felt so right, so us. I realized then that while I was a little sad about my parents, they weren't the ones who made this day special. Alex did. Our friends did. The people who actually cared about us and our happiness made it special. By the time the reception started, I wasn't even thinking about them anymore. The whole evening was filled with dancing, laughing, and just celebrating with the people who mattered. Emily gave the most heartfelt speech, making everyone tear up a little, and Alex's best man told some hilarious stories that had everyone rolling. The food was great, the music was perfect, and the dance floor was packed all night. Honestly, it couldn't have gone better. When Alex and I finally left, heading off for our honeymoon, I felt lighter than I had in months. There was no more stress, no more drama, just the two of us, starting this new chapter together. We went on this amazing trip, spending 2 weeks at a beach resort, just relaxing and enjoying the fact that we were married. It was the escape we both needed, a chance to leave everything behind and just focus on each other. But even during the honeymoon, I kept waiting for my phone to buzz, thinking maybe my parents would reach out. Maybe they'd regret not coming. Maybe they'd want to make amends. But nothing. Not a single text. Not a call. Not even a generic congrats message. Radio silence. And honestly, by the time we got back, I was over it. Done. I had spent so much energy worrying about them, hoping they'd come around. But it was clear they weren't going to. I had given them every chance to be part of my life, to show up for me when it really mattered, and they chose not to. That's on them, not me. I'm not saying it didn't hurt because it did. But I was done letting their decisions control how I felt. I wasn't going to spend any more time chasing after people who didn't want to be there for me. I had Alex. I had my friends. I had the people who did show up, and that was enough. So after the honeymoon, I just moved on. I didn't reach out to them, and they didn't reach out to me. And that was fine. I had a new life to focus on, and I wasn't going to let their absence cast a shadow over my happiness. The wedding was everything I hoped it would be, even without them. And as much as it hurt to realize they'd chosen not to be part of it, it also showed me something important. I don't need them to validate my life. I've got the people who truly care about me, and that's more than enough. So yeah, I was done with them. For the first time, I felt okay saying that. It wasn't angry or bitter. It was just the truth. They made their choice, and I made mine. And at the end of the day, I was happy with how it all turned out. Because even without them, the day was still amazing, and that's all that really mattered.